Hola, hola socios. Welcome to the number 2 in the Chalk and Talk sessions. Today we're talking about pronunciation, okay? And within that we're going to talk about the nose rule, the broken nose rule, and everything else, okay? And again, I've mentioned this in the message that I sent out, but this Chalk and Talk session has been instigated, suggested by Greg in Canada. I was going to say, that's how you pronounce it in Spanish, Canada, with an accent on the A. We'll come to that. So, hola Greg, gracias por la sugerencia. Okay, so, pronunciation. What's the story with pronunciation in Spanish? Well, look, you know, I personally think that pronunciation is as important as any other aspect of learning Spanish. If anything, it's more important. If anything, it's the most important part of speaking Spanish. Why? Because of this. Because if you learn Spanish fantastically well, okay, you have all the verbs conjugated, you have everything to perfection, but you can't pronounce the words properly, there's no point in having any Spanish. There's no point in speaking if people can't understand you. Now you might say, well, okay, but you know, you just say the word and people will know. It's really not the case. It's not the case. If you think about when you talk to people who are speaking in English, but it isn't their native tongue, it isn't the mother tongue, when they pronounce badly the word, they may get all the letters right, but when they pronounce the word badly, very often it's difficult to understand what it is that they're saying. And what is the badly pronounced word? Typically what people do is they put the emphasis in the wrong place. That's all. They put the emphasis in the wrong place. It isn't that they've missed any letters out. It's just that, they say one word, for example, just think of the word pleasure. Pleasure. I'm going to come back to this. Pleasure, okay? So the emphasis falls on the eh sound, all right? But if you say the word pleasure, okay? Okay, and if somebody just said to you, pleasure, you would think, what are they saying? Pleasure. Sure what? So just by changing the emphasis, the place where the emphasis falls on the word can completely confuse your listener. Let me give you an example. I'm sure the gentleman won't mind me mentioning his example. I won't say who it is, but somebody who's in Spain said to me, I'm really frustrated. I went to the bar that I always go to and I wanted to order meatballs, okay? I wanted to order meatballs. He said, and I said to the guy, give me some meatballs. And he looked at me and didn't understand. He didn't understand. And I kept repeating it and he didn't understand. In the end, he had to use his hands and say, como pelotas de carne, okay? Which is another great way of doing it. If you can't say the word, use your hands and say it a different way. But what happened was that as he was telling me what he was saying, I realized instantly what his problem was, and all that was wrong was that he was pronouncing the word incorrectly. Right, so the word for meatballs is albóndigas. Albóndigas. So where's the emphasis? On the o, albóndigas. He was saying albóndigas, okay? Me da albóndigas. Now, it mightn't sound that far away, but what happens is when you move the emphasis, suddenly you've got, sounds like two words, albón and then digas. So digas is the negative imperative, okay? Or the subjunctive. So the guy's getting confused hearing this albóndigas. It's like, come on, no me digas, no? So he didn't know. And that's all that happened was albóndigas, correcto. Albóndigas, totally different word, different sound. Pronunciation's everything. Somebody once went into a roadside cafe and ordered un bocadillo. okay, un bocadillo, and the woman gave him a vodka with ice, vodka hielo, okay, vodka con hielo. So bocadillo and vodka con hielo. Why? Because of the pronunciation. Another person wanted to buy sugar, came out of the shop not with the sugar because he was saying azúcar, azúcar, ¿vale? En vez de azúcar, with the accent, the emphasis on the U. So that's the difference. It's if you get the pronunciation wrong, no matter how many times you repeat it, people are going to be struggling with it. So how do you get it right? Well, this is what we're going to do now. We're going to talk about the 3 rules, as I've mentioned. The nose rule, the broken nose rule, and everything else. So what's the nose rule? Well, the nose rule is nice and straightforward. It's called the nose rule because of this. Any word that ends with an N, with an S, or with any vowel. The vowels are A, E, I, O, U, or A, E, I, O, U in Spanish, okay? So any word that ends with an N, an S, or any vowel. The O and the E in this nose rule represent all the vowels. What happens is the emphasis falls on the second last vowel of the word. The second last. If you want to be posh, you can say the penultimate. Okay? So that's where it falls. So let me give you some examples. Think of virtually all of the verbs, when they're conjugated, fall into the nose rule. So you've got the verb to speak, hablar. And so when you say I speak, right, that's hablo, hablo. So why? Because it ends with O, therefore it's the nose rule. Okay, so the emphasis falls on the second last vowel, which is the A. So it goes hablo, hablo. Yeah. Now what happens when we're learning to conjugate our verbs, our whole focus is on the end. I've got to put an O there, I've got to put an S there. And so what happens is we tend to put the emphasis there and we'll say hablo, hablas, habla. No, because all of the conjugations, apart from vosotros, well, because that's slightly different, we'll come to that, all of them are the nose rule. So you get this hablo, hablas, habla. Yeah? So let me give you another example of a word that is the nose rule. So let's do chair, silla, silla. Okay, so why is it the nose rule? Well, it ends with A, therefore it's a nose rule, and therefore the emphasis falls on the second last vowel, which is the I. So you get silla, silla. Does that make sense? It's as simple as that. Okay, so when you see a word that has an N or an S or a vowel, then it falls on, the emphasis falls on the second last. Look at the, for example, when we say they speak, ends with an N, hablan. So it ends with an N, it's nose rule, and therefore you put the emphasis on the second last vowel, which is the A, hablan. Yeah. The same as with the S, when you say you speak, that's hablas. So that's S, that's the nose rule, so it falls on the second last A, which happens to be the first A in the word. So it's hablas. Now, watch out for this. One of the biggest issues that we have is when we get to the nosotros, okay? Why? Because we go like this. We go, hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos. But no, we don't keep the emphasis on that first A of the word. Why? Because if you think about the nosotros, hablamos, it ends with the S, so therefore it's nose rule, but the emphasis has to fall on the second last vowel, which is the second A now. So it's shifted. So it becomes hablamos, hablamos. Yeah, not hablamos, hablamos. Now it's subtle. Okay, and if you said to somebody, hablamos, they would understand. But it's important to know what it is that you're doing, because with some words, it's fine. But with other words, you're changing the meaning. For example, if you say hablo, that means I speak. Yeah. But if you say hablo and you put it in the wrong place, you've changed the meaning from I speak to he spoke or she spoke or it spoke or usted spoke. Yeah. So by moving the emphasis, sometimes you change the meaning completely. And by moving the emphasis, sometimes you confuse your listener. And that's the more important of the two. Okay. So the nose rule, in resumen, if the word ends with an S, an N, that's in nose, or any vowel, then the emphasis falls on the second last vowel. Now that emphasis, you can say énfasis, okay? Or you can say el golpe de voz, okay? El golpe de voz is the punch of the voice. That's the peak, where you peak, okay? So, now we get off to the broken nose rule. What is the broken nose rule? Well, it's anything that doesn't apply to the nose rule. So what's that? Any word that ends with the rest of the consonants. The consonants are the non-vowels, the B, C, D, F, G. Yeah. So apart from N and S, if it has any other consonant on the end, the emphasis now falls on the very last vowel. Some examples. If you look at a tablecloth finishes with L. It's mantel. Yeah, mantel. So it finishes with an L, so it's broken nose. All right, because it's not an N or an S. So therefore, the emphasis, the el golpe de voz, falls on the E. Mantel. Yeah. If you think of the word, all of the words that end with D, okay, the DAD words and stuff like that, then that, for example, city, ciudad, it goes ciudad. So it falls, the emphasis, it finishes with a D, so it's broken nose, so it falls on the last vowel of the word. Ciudad, felicidad, the word wall, pared. Yeah? Notice, just out of interest, talking about pronunciation, when a word finishes with a D, like ciudad, pared, seth, don't be tempted to pronounce the D. You've got two options. Typically in the whole of the Spanish-speaking world that I have heard, if it finishes with a D, you can either make it sound like a th, yeah, or you can leave it like a pregnant ending, like a pregnant wah. You drag out the ear, so you get this ciudad. Okay, I've heard that very much in the north as well. Or ciudad. So nothing, no D. So it's never ciudad. I've never heard that yet. Okay, ciudad. Okay, so broken nose rule is if it finishes with a consonant that is not an N and is not an S, then the emphasis falls on the very last vowel. That's it, right? So we've got the nose rule, which is N, S, any vowel, second last vowel has the emphasis. Or the broken nose rule, which is any other consonant, the last vowel has the emphasis. Right, so what's the everything else? Well, at some point in the history of Spanish, somebody decided that the typical pronunciation of the words didn't always apply, and that some words needed to be pronounced in a different way. And so because of that, they have what's called la tilde, or the accent. We call it an accent, they call it una tilde. And what that does, the job of the tilde is to show you that this is not a normal word. This is not following any of the rules. This is something else. So when you get the word, for example, armchair, and you get sillón, okay? Sillón. Now, what we've got is this. We've got this word, S-I-L-L-O-N. It's a nose rule. But when we listen to it being pronounced, you hear this, sillón. Where is sillón? Where's the accent falling? Where's the emphasis falling? It's falling on the O. It shouldn't be there. It should be on the I, because this is a nose rule. So nose rule is second last vowel. So when you hear a word that is being pronounced, basically, let's say it's being pronounced wrongly according to the rules, sillón, there is no way around that. That word, that letter O, has to have an accent on it. So there we have it. When you see a word in Spanish and it has una tilde, always, you'll notice always on top of a vowel, because that's where we put the emphasis, always on vowels. So when you see a word that has this tilde, this accent, then you know that that is where you need to put the emphasis. And you also know that that is not the normal place for the word to have emphasis. It wouldn't normally have the emphasis there. Okay, so when you actually do for example, in my classes, I used to do un dictado, a dictation. And the idea was for people to listen to the way that I was pronouncing the word, write the word, and then write to see whether it needed an accent or not. Now, once you understand, once you've kind of got the rule in your head about the nose rule, the broken nose rule, then you know that when you hear a word, you know if it needs an accent or not. Now, that takes a little while. Lots of people don't write with the accents. They don't put the accents on. Lots of people, and the vast majority of Spanish speakers don't put the accents on. Very naughty. The only one that they seem to manage to get on is the ñ, the tilde over the N, the squiggle. They seem to get that one on. But apart from that, very rarely, which is a shame really, because part of the language is a very important part of the language. So, there we have the nose rule. Words like hablamos, comemos, comes, they're all the nose rule. Then we've got the broken nose rule, and you've got words that all the rest of the consonants. For example, if you look at all of the verbs, have you ever wondered why it is that we always have to put the emphasis on the ar, ir? Hablar, comer, vivir, abrir. Why? Because it's a broken nose rule. It finishes with an R, not an N or an S, so it's broken nose. So you get this hablar, vivir, comer, entrar. Yeah? So it always has to skew itself to the last vowel on the verbs. But then when you break it down, so hablar, broken nose, hablo, nose rule. That makes sense? Yeah. So it takes a while to understand what you're doing. When you're in full flow, it's very difficult to go, hang on a minute, with all of the things that we've got to remember. Hang on a minute. Now, is this word a nose rule, or is this a broken nose rule, or is it one of the, or the rest? You can't do that. You learn the words by sound, by the melody. I often talk about learning the melody of the language, and of course you do. But it's important to understand why. Why are we pronouncing these words in this way? Why is it that when you say azúcar, why is it that we're putting the accent on the U? If you think about this word, azúcar, right. If you look at it, I put it here without any accent on it. What is that? What word is that? Is that a nose rule or a broken nose rule? Azúcar. When you look at it. Well, it finishes with an R, so that's broken nose. It's finished with a consonant that's other than N or S. So the accent should fall, the emphasis should fall on the very last vowel, which is, it should be azúcar. But no, it's azúcar. Why? Because that word has an accent on it. That has a tilde, una tilde, on the U. And therefore we skew it up in the middle, not on the end. Does that make sense? So that's what you've got to bear in mind when you're looking at words and you see accents on words. It's purely because that is not a naturally pronounced word. It has changed. You'll find that a lot of the words that have been imported into Spanish, for whatever reason, they don't like to pronounce them in the same way as they are originally pronounced. So they tend to change the sound a little bit. They tend to skew the sound of imported words like sofa, sofa. Okay, that word really is a nose ruled word. It should be sofa, the same as way as we say it in English, the sofa. Yeah, but no, they put an accent on the A to make it sofa. Okay, why? Just to be different, I suppose. This is a foreign word. We'll have to make it sound our way. Yeah. So now I'm going to give you a test. I'm going to give you some words, and what I would like you to do is I'd like you to get a pen and a paper. Look, it doesn't matter. This is not official, right? So if you're sitting in your office having a sneaky peek at the video or wherever, just grab a pencil and a back of a fag packet, if you don't smoke, an envelope, and just write down these words. And you can do one of two things. You can either write the word down and decide if it needs una tilde or no. Or you can just write, yes, it needs an accent, or no, it doesn't need an accent. And also identify, is it the nose rule or the broken nose rule? So really, I suppose what we're doing is we're identifying three things. Is this just a standard nose rule word? Yeah. Ending with N, S, or a vowel. Is this a broken nose rule word ending with another consonant? Or is this something else that needs an accent because it's not a natural pronunciation? So this is what you've got to guess. So let's go through some words. Are you ready? Okay, so here we go. I'll give you the word and you decide if it needs an accent and also identify, is it a nose rule or a broken nose rule? Okay, so first word, raton, raton. Now, raton. So I'm putting the word on the screen without any accents, but I want you to listen to where my emphasis is going. Raton. Does that word need an accent or no? It's a nose rule, isn't it? We'll review at the end. Next word. Cajon. Not to be confused with another word. Cajon. Cajon. Does this word need an accent or not? You decide. Cajon. Next word. Tejado. Tejado. So does this word need an accent or is it pronounced the way it should be? Tejado. If I'm going too quickly, just pause and have a think about it. Yeah. Okay, next word. Camiseta. Camiseta. T-shirt. Does that need an accent or is that one okay, the way I'm pronouncing it? Camiseta. Okay, next one. Portátil. Portátil. Laptop. Portátil. Are we needing an accent on this word or is it okay the way I'm pronouncing it? Does it fit in with the nose rule or the broken nose rule? It's a broken nose rule word, isn't it? Because it finishes with an L. Portátil. Okay. Next one. Ventana. Ventana. Window. Does that word need an accent or no? Ventana. Okay. Next word. Ordenador. 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 Accent or no? Finishes with an R. Okay. So it's a broken nose rule. Where's the emphasis? Ordenador. Okay. And then the last word. Mantel. 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 Tablecloth. So, does that word need an accent? Does it need una tilde, the way that I'm pronouncing it? Mantel. Yes or no? Okay, so let's review. First word, which was mouse. Okay? Raton, raton. Now, what we've got is we've got a word that ends with N, so it's a nose rule. So really the emphasis should be on the second last vowel, which would be the A. So the word would be, if it was pronounced the natural way, raton, raton. But that's not how I'm saying it. I'm saying raton. So there's something wrong there. I'm not pronouncing it the way that it should. Therefore, yes, on the O, there's an accent. Raton. Has to be. Yeah. Next word. Cajon. Cajon, which is a drawer. So, there's another word that ends with N. That's a nose rule. So therefore, the emphasis, just like the previous one, should be on the A. But it's not. It's cajon. So this word also needs an accent on the O to show that this is not normal. Okay, next word, tejado, tejado. Okay, so we've got a word that ends with O, nose rule. And where's my emphasis? Tejado. So the emphasis is falling on the A, the second last vowel. So that's perfect. That doesn't need an accent because that's been pronounced in the way that it should. Tejado. Yeah. That makes sense? See, if I put it in other places, tejado, that would be wrong. That would need an accent. Okay? So, or if I said tejado, nobody would understand me. Pero tejado, that would also need an accent. But tejado, perfect. All right, next one. Camiseta, camiseta. Okay, so that ends with an A. So the emphasis has to be on the second last vowel, which is the E. Camiseta. So that's perfect. Camiseta. You see? It's lifting on the E, so that's okay. Normal. Next one. The laptop. Portátil. Portátil. So here's a word that ends with L, so that's a broken nose rule. So therefore the accent should be on, officially, should be on the very last vowel, which is the I. Is that where I'm putting it? Portátil. No, I'm putting the emphasis on the A. Portátil. So that's not correct. That's not in the right place. Therefore, the A needs to have an accent on it. Portátil. Yeah? Are you getting the idea? So you're listening to the flow of the word. You're listening for where the peak is. And then you know if that needs an accent or not. Next word. Ventana, ventana, window. So it finishes with A, so therefore the emphasis needs to be on the second last vowel, ventana. That's in the perfect place, ventana. Yeah, it's not ventana and it's not ventana. It's ventana in the perfect place. Okay. If it takes a while for you to get you tuned into this, don't worry about it. All right, the sounds are very subtle, okay, and particularly when people are saying them quickly. You know, the difference between ventana and ventana, there is a difference, but it's subtle. So don't worry if you can't quite capture it. I'm just going to show you a little tip afterwards on how to improve your pronunciation, yeah, and how to actually hear something, where the emphasis is. Okay, so ventana, perfect. Next word. Ordenador, ordenador, right? So here we've got a word that ends with R, so it's the broken nose rule, and therefore the emphasis should be on the very last vowel, which is the O, yeah? So where is it? Ordenador. That's where it is. It's on the O, so that's fine. That doesn't need an accent, yeah? Okay, and then the last word, mantel. Mantel. So it finishes with an L, so that is the broken nose rule. So therefore the emphasis should be on the last vowel, which is the E, mantel, and that's where I'm putting it, mantel. Yeah? Okay, so that's basically, how did you do, by the way? Did you get them? If you did, well done. If you're a bit blurry and it's like, oh, it's all happening too quickly, or I can't quite hear it, don't worry about it. These are things that you can practice in your own time. My suggestion, as always, is that if you want to improve your pronunciation, start reading out loud to yourself. And now that you know the rules, you can look at a word and you know where the emphasis should go. Now, let me give you a little suggestion to actually improve your pronunciation. All that you have to do is this. Choose the paragraph that you're going to read out loud. Go through each word, and any word that doesn't have the accent on it, the word that doesn't have the accent, put one on. Put one on where it naturally is. So if you've got, for example, hablar, put the accent on the A. All right? And just go through your paragraph and do that. Then read. And every time you get to where the accent is, give it that lift. Now, that'll help you to kind of get into the rhythm of knowing where they fall naturally. Also, I've got 2 more points to make and then I'm going to let you go, okay? Or you're going to let me go, perhaps. So, first of all is this. To help you to get the lift in the right place, you use your finger. You've been watching me do this. What you do is this. You say the word, and where the lift is, lift your finger so you become like a conductor of an orchestra. Yeah? Like this. So for example, if it's hablar, right, you go like this. Hablar. And lift your finger where you've got to lift your voice, and your voice will follow. It's a very good system. I've used it a lot, and I've used it with my students, and it works, particularly the people who are all confused and they say, hablar. And I say, no, watch my finger. Hablar. And then they do it, hablar, and then they get it. All right? So you help yourself. Make it physical, and then it's surprising how easy it becomes. Also, the last thing is this. I've covered this very generally. With the system you've got, with the nose rule, the broken nose rule, everything else, you will be able to pronounce 95% of the words perfectly. What I haven't done is I haven't gone into where you get 2 vowels together. But I want you just to tell you one thing, right? Which is, it's not a big deal when you have 2 vowels together. But what you have to remember is this. 2 vowels together count as 1 when you're working out the nose rule and the broken nose rule. Yeah. So for example, if you get a word that has, for example, 2 vowels, for example, the word monasterio, okay, that word ends with IO. So you think, what happens is then it's a nose rule, so does it fall on the I? No. The I and the O count as 1. So the emphasis falls on the E. Monasterio. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go more into the doubled up vowels, and I'll tell you why. Because in Spanish, when you get 2 vowels together, invariably one of them is stronger than the other. And I'm going to leave that for another time, because I think you've got enough here with just understanding the system. The doubled up vowels isn't a great issue at the moment. Better that you focus on getting the standard words right and understanding where you've got to put your emphasis with the tildes and everything, okay? And then later on, I'll get into strong and weak vowels and everything like that, okay? But with what you've got, 95% of your words are going to come out perfectly. I promise. Okay? Te lo prometo. Okay, great. So there you are. That's pronunciation. Remember, pronunciation is everything. There's no point in having a fantastic Spanish vocabulary if nobody understands a word you're saying. Okay, it's so important. Okay, so practice. Read out loud. Put your accents where you need them, and practice, practice, practice. Okay, makes perfect. Hasta luego, chicos. Adiós.